For decades, cars have been the symbol of luxury and wealth, but the knock-on effect to the average Joe has been devastating. More and more people are putting themselves into unnecessary debt to try and buy their next car, with over £40 billion borrowed in the UK alone last year. Just to put that into perspective, how much borrowing that actually is, that's 263% more than 13 years ago. And in that same time period, wages have only gone up 28%. If those stats have got your head spinning a little bit like mine, then you're going to want to stick around for this video where I run through the guidelines to figure out how much car can you really afford. I'm also going to take a look at some of those common questions like, is it better to finance, lease, or just buy your car outright? And if you stick around to the end, I'll even share with you some of my best tips as to how to lower your car payments right now. Most videos online talk about the 35% rule, which explains that the most you should ever spend on a car is 35% of your annual gross income. However, what these sources fail to mention is that this limit is set for the absolute car enthusiast, that person who's constantly thinking about the next car they want to buy, and probably not for you watching this video. I do hope that assumption was right. Which is why I came up with the character percentage rule. The first thing you need to figure out is what kind of character are you when purchasing your car. Character 1 is the frugal commuter, that person who's just looking to go from A to B. Character 3 is the gearhead, that person who's still watching reruns of Top Gear. And bang slap in the middle is character 2, the compromiser, that person who wouldn't mind a bit of luxury, you know, some Apple CarPlay, but also doesn't want to spend their entire paycheck on a car. For each of these characters, there's obviously going to be a different percentage of your income that you should be spending on your next car. Character 3, the enthusiast, the gearhead, 35% works perfectly for you. Character 1, on the other hand, should be looking to spend no more than 15% of their annual gross income, whilst Character 2 sits firmly in the middle at 25%. If you're a little bit confused, let me put some context behind it by looking at 3 salaries, 30k, 70k, and 150k, and we'll compare each of the 3 characters against each of these 3 salaries. The 30k salary ranges from £4,500 to an upper limit of £10,500. The 70k salary can spend between £10,500 and £24,500, while the 150k salary should aim to spend between £22,500 and £52,500. Of course, if you're earning 150k and you want to buy a car for £5,000, I am not stopping you. That is a genius idea. The next guideline focuses on when you want to finance a car, and it's called the 24-10 rule. Let's start with the 20 part of this rule, which states that you should be putting down at least 20% as a deposit on any car that you finance. For example, let's say you're buying a car for £20,000, you should be putting at least a £4,000 deposit on that car. What's the actual reason though behind that 20% number? The first is that it just shows your affordability. If you have that much money to put down as a deposit, it's a sign that you likely can afford the car. But the main reason is because of negative equity. You don't want to be in a position where you owe the lender more money than the actual car is worth. You see, a well-known stat is when a brand new car is driven off the lot, it loses up to 20% of its value immediately. If you have zero deposit against that, you all of a sudden instantly owe that lender more than the car is worth. Putting down this 20% deposit acts like a safety net to stop that happening. Next up in the 24-10 rule is the 4, which states that you shouldn't finance this car for a period longer than 4 years. Most dealers will always try and convince you that you can afford the car that you want, and they do this by just extending the repayment period on that car. However, what the dealer is not telling you is that you are going to be paying a lot more in interest on that car over that period. Let me break this down for you by showing you how much you're going to end up repaying on a car that costs £20,000 if you borrow for 4 years or 6 years. Yes, over that 4-year period, your monthly payments are going to be higher at £477 compared to £339 over 6 years. And because of that, most people's gut instinct is, let's take that 6-year deal, it's cheaper. But what you're missing is with today's interest rate, that's going to end up costing you £2,300 extra in interest. This leads us nicely onto the last part of the 24-10 rule, which states that your monthly repayments, including maintenance and insurance, should not come to more than 10% of your monthly salary. Putting this against those 3 salaries that we looked at earlier, if you're earning 30k, that number is £250. If you're earning 70k, that number is £583. And if you're earning that 150k salary, that number is £1,250. By keeping this money at 10%, we are really budgeting this area of our life, giving ourselves a healthy amount to spend in other areas, or in particular to put towards our investments. Now onto the age-old question, lease or buy. Leasing does come with a lot of great benefits, with the 2 best ones obviously being that you get a new car quite often, plus your monthly payments are actually lower. However, it also comes with a lot of restrictions. You'll probably have higher insurance rates. The amount of miles you drive will be restricted, and you will be charged for even the smallest damage to your car. Having said all that, it seems that leasing only works for 2 kind of requirements. Number 1, you only need a car for 3 or 4 years, or number 2, you like to change your car every 3 or 4 years. But for the majority of people, people who want to own a car for a long period of time, leasing is not the option for you. So if we're not going to lease the car, what's the best way to buy it? Should we finance it, or should we just purchase it outright in cash? In the majority of cases, financing tends to be the better option because of opportunity cost. Let's take a look at the two scenarios. Firstly, the cash purchase. If you spend that £20,000, you can't do anything else with it. Now let's take a look at financing, where you'll put down a £4,000 deposit if you're following the 24/10 rule, leaving you with £16,000 in your bank account still. Now if you go and invest that money and you get the average returns of the stock market of 10%, at the end of those 4 years, you'll have £23.4 thousand sitting in your bank account. Or if you invest it for the next 30, that's 280k. There is a caveat, and that is, let's say you have a poor credit score and the interest rates that you're being offered are extremely high. In my case, that means something like over 8%. I would then prefer to buy that car in cash or wait until interest rates come back down, because I do not want to commit to any kind of high interest debt. Deep breath out, everyone. We're finally up to the part where I'm going to share with you some of those hacks to lower your car repayments right now. First, always negotiate your car insurance. I want to tell you a quick story. This year, my car insurance renewal came through at £1,200. Last year I paid £600. Now most people when they get that letter just accept that that's the new price of their car insurance. Instead I went to a comparison site and I found that exact same policy with another provider for £400. The next steps were simple. Called up my insurance, told them I was leaving to go to this new provider. They magically were able to match it, and voila, I saved £800. Step number 2, purchase a second-hand vehicle. I've already told you that cars depreciate by 20% the moment they're driven off the lot for the first time. But what I didn't say is they continue to depreciate 10 to 15% every year, but this number actually reduces as the car gets older and older. If you buy a car that isn't brand new, you'll save on that depreciation, and when it comes to sell it, you're not going to lose as much value on your vehicle as well. And hack number 3 is when you are buying a car, always look at the total cost of ownership. Most people think that the total cost of ownership is the price tag that is stuck on that car, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Once you start to factor maintenance and insurance costs, these prices can swing dramatically. Take these two cars, a Mazda 3 and a BMW 4 Series. Whilst the Mazda is slightly more expensive, the BMW will set you back an extra £20,000 over a 5-year period. Bet you didn't see that one coming. All data seems to be pointing to the fact that people just can't afford the cars that they're driving these days. I mean, how many people do you know that earn the same amount as you but drive crazy cars? I know quite a few. If on the other hand you decide to stick to some of those guidelines that I discussed at the beginning of the video, then in a few years time you probably will be able to afford that car you've always dreamt of. In the meantime, if you're happy to, drop how much you're currently paying on your vehicle and where you're from, because I know that it will help everyone else in the comments. And once you've done that, why not check out 7 other things that you shouldn't be wasting your money on, because yep, one of them is a car.